Good morning, people. Good morning. It is good to see so many of you here. I love it. My name is Bert Meek. I'm going to be your worship associate this morning. Today is Sunday, March 24th, 2024. Since we're making a recording of this, now we have a time stamp for that. The woman preaching today is our settled minister, Reverend Bethany Russell Lowe. And the service today, we've offered these before. The ministers of the UU churches here in Tucson call it a pulpit palooza. But what that means is you're going to be hearing from each one of them, and those congregations will be hearing from Reverend Bethany as well as the other ministers. And it underscores the interconnection that we have as the Baja Four, as the four Unitarian Universalist churches in Tucson. So they'll be moving from live to video, and all the bugs have been worked out just in the last half hour. So we hope it'll all go smoothly. If it doesn't, I know you'll understand. When I finish talking as welcome, I'm going to ask you to discuss with someone close to you, sitting close to you now, a topic that we'll choose. I want you to talk about gratitude. I want you to think about, while I'm speaking, what stirs gratitude in you, and then how you express it to the people around you. Both parts of that. But wait a minute, I got some other stuff to talk about first. We no longer require that masks be worn during our services here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson. COVID is not gone, but it's more on the horizon. And so the CDC and the Pima County folks that look over this don't feel this masks are necessary. But if you're not feeling well, you always have the option of watching us online and taking care of us and taking care of yourself. The compliance to the vaccine, right now the booster that was offered in the fall for Pima County is 23%, which is pretty typical for a whole country. Now, it was a couple years ago, we did a survey here of all of the congregational members of our church, and we were way over 90%, because we took it seriously for ourselves and seriously for the most vulnerable amongst us. So my hope is we'll all continue with that. We may even throw another survey question at you to get some more current data about support for the vaccine and support for one another. We have a couple bathrooms just down the hall. Then take a left. One of them is wheelchair accessible. They're unigender bathrooms. Following the service, there are snacks being prepared right now for you to enjoy, as well as the continued good company of all the folks here this morning. It's good. As we move more deeply into the sacred space of worship, I want to underscore how committed our community is to welcoming each and every one of you and each of everyone online. However you arrived here, if you walked, you rode your bike, you rode your car, you are welcome here. However you identify your gender and however you choose to express it, you are welcome here. And whomever you love, you are welcome here. So, the question I'll pose, turn to someone close to you, perhaps someone you haven't had breakfast with, and let them know what stirs gratitude from within, and then how you express that. And when you hear the gong, I'll pull you back. But anyway, go ahead. There's a chance to talk. This will go on forever. It always does my heart good to see the energy when folks connect. So remember the conversations that I interrupted, and please feel free to please continue those after the service. Jen.
Thank you, Danielle. You know how to pick them some weeks, many weeks, most weeks. As we have been studying the proposed Article 2, changes to the Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Association's bylaws this year, I have been directing my attention towards the values that feel new in the proposal, where these values are stretching me, stretching us. One of those new values is generosity. The proposed Article 2 defines the UU value of generosity this way. Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Just over 4 years ago, on March 7th, 2020, where were you then? I sent an email to Reverend Matthew Funk Crary, Reverend Tina Squire, and Reverend Samantha Wilson. The title of that email was Baja 4 Zoom Worship ? In that email, I proposed that we think about doing a Zoom worship together, all together, in light of the then just trickling in recommendations here in Tucson and in Arizona that we not gather in person for a few weeks or more. This idea was met with 3 enthusiastic yeses. I love it, I'm in, great idea. And also Reverend Tina wrote, thank you for thinking outside the box and finding some tiny positive possibility in the midst of something ominous. That's when amazing things happen in churches, I find. Well, Reverend Tina was prescient, or perhaps prophetic. Amazing things did happen. We ended up worshiping together for over 18 months online. Our worship staff met together weekly for all of that year and a half. And your ministers continue to meet weekly for collegial and congregational support. I come back to this value of generosity. We cultivate gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. To me, our Baja 4 has embodied this value of generosity as defined this way. Throughout the pandemic, through that time of upheaval and anxiety, our work together gave us reason to have gratitude, sustained us, gave us hope for something exciting and innovative to happen in the midst of death and grief. We share our resources too, tallying the relationships we are building across our congregation rather than the number of hours we are each committing to any project. Through our work together, the Baja 4 has come to truly understand our interdependence with each other. We are connected now in ways that would never have been possible if we had not said yes to generosity and collaboration. Throughout our work as the Baja 4 during that pandemic, we said over and over again, we are stronger together. And that was it then and still is so true. If we are stronger together, then our strength as a Baja 4 is dependent on the strength of the congregation or congregations we belong to. When one of us thrives, we all thrive. When one of us grows, we all grow. When one of us learns, we all learn. When you invest in this congregation, you are investing in the Baja 4. In our congregation, we are at the tail end of our pledge drive, which means the calls have begun. Dun, dun, dun. This year, we are encouraging you to invest at UUCT to help us maintain and grow and thrive. We are encouraging you to pledge to show your commitment to this congregation. So far, we have collected over $246,000 in pledges, which is more than was pledged last year. This is a good start. And nearly 75% of our members have pledged so far, but our goal is 100% participation. So if you are one who has not submitted your pledge yet, I think they are still at the ushers table. We are counting on all of you. Throughout this service of the Baja 4, you will hear from different ministers reflecting on generosity. And we are inviting you to go to menti.com and to put in the code that is on the screen right now, 3644-0049, and submit your answer to this question. In one word, how do you practice generosity as a Unitarian Universalist? One word, I'm serious about that one. So if you are so inclined, go to menti.com and put in that code 3644-0049 and submit your one word about how you practice generosity as a Unitarian Universalist. We are going to build a word cloud of answers from people in all the Baja 4 congregations. Welcome to this celebration of what the Baja 4 has been, is now, and could become.
we'll see who here suffers from PTSD from this, but hopefully you saw that as a joyful noise, not necessarily traumatic. So did we get an answer for the Menti again or not? Okay, you'll have lots of chance to use Menti as we go along. So it's now time to do our ceremony and lighting a candle or chalice. If any of you are at home and have a candle or chalice, please join us as we read together the We Light Our Chalice, written by Katie Savini Gelfand. Good. With me, please. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In this sanctuary, we harvest bushels of strength for one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity. In the authentic and gentle manner of our connections, we cultivate the simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other, for it is the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us. Brian.
I am grateful for musicians to make music with. Rick Meyer and I figured out the song we're about to sing from a CD about 20 years ago, and he taught me how to play it on guitar. And I say that because in the published version, which we have permission to sing now as a hymn, 2 or 3 words changed, and yet I have Rick Meyer's handwriting up here of his original lyric sheet, and I'm going to sing that. You'll figure it out. It'll be fine. Ours is a simple faith, and life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day. There is no hell to fear, no judgment day drawing near. Trust the inner voice you hear every day. Life's not a goal or a race, but it's about heart and faith and living a life of grace every day. Trust is an open hand, making an honest stand, rooted here in the land every day. There's a mystery, seeking for harmony here between you and me every day. Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day.
Baja 4 has been considering the concept of generosity. And whatever you think of Article 2, how it's been worked through, how it's been proposed, I have to say I really like that on the flower of our newly expressed values, there's a petal for generosity. And the words used to describe it are both beautiful and helpful to me. Generosity, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. Let's take a moment to savor those words. Generosity itself is so rich. It shares a root with words like generational and genesis. And the root gen means birth and production. And isn't there something generative about really good generosity, leading to love and resilience in any community it's part of? I do think that gratitude comes along with good generosity. It's always step back and acknowledge the good and beauty in our lives, that we can give out of abundance instead of scarcity, that we give more fully, because there's a thanks, there's a gracia, there's a gratitude and grace involved. But how about hope? Often we are in a time when we don't really know if we are giving into abundance. We don't know the future. Almost exactly 4 years ago, on March 20th, 2020, we put up our first joint Baja 4 worship service together, not knowing what the future held, not knowing what would happen in this pandemic, or when our churches would meet again. We had to plant seeds of hope, take that risk and be vulnerable. But isn't that also part of the balancing act of generosity? As we discussed generosity, the Baja 4 ministers came up with another word, boundaries. When we give, there has to be boundaries. Mother Teresa talks about giving until it hurts. I really don't like that phrase. I like the idea of giving until you're out of your comfort zone and risking growth. And even if you feel like you're giving, you also have to do some change and hard work in yourself. But giving until you're depleted and can't breathe, that is too much. That is unboundaried giving. And what about giving until the gift is what is needed? Those who are receiving generosity have to say what they need and want. I walked through a banana plantation in 2000 and saw a pristine, carefully constructed house and wondered why no one lived in it when this was soon after Hurricane Mitch and many houses were needed. And I was told that a country that had generously decided to give 1% of its gross national product to others in need had come and created this house and put it there in the plantation, never asking cultivators of bananas what they needed to live in. And so the house was useless to them and stood empty. We have to ask, we have to hear, we have to tell. There are boundaries to generosity. And as I explored research about generosity, the organizational psychologist Adam Grant has given me 3 new words. That most people are either takers, matchers, or givers in organizations. Takers want to put as little effort in to take as much out for themselves. And they like to take as much of the credit as possible without sharing it. Often you will see a report about a company, and if the CEO has a whole spread for his or her photo, be wary. They may well be takers. But if their picture doesn't show up at all, if the font in their name is tiny, this means they're sharing credit. They may be givers. Most of us are matchers. We give to those people we know can give back to us. We don't waste our resources, which are precious, on people who can't reciprocate. Most of us are matchers. But the givers are both the most successful and often the least successful people in an organization. It depends on how you give. If you give because you just don't know how to say no, if you give until you're exhausted and depleted and you don't have a goal in mind, really you are giving to receive back, to receive love, attention, to never let anyone down. That's kind of an unboundaried giving that isn't helpful. In my, as a minister, I've often had boundary training, and my favorite awareness came one year when we discussed trying to be superhuman. We're tempted to give as much as we give and also promise more than we can deliver. But if we do that, if we try to put on capes and give everything possible, we will let people down. There's another word we need to embrace, and that is humility. Not because we need to be ashamed or crushed down, but because of humus and dirt and earth. We as Unitarian Universalists need to be grounded in this earth, in this world that we want to heal and help to grow. And so we need to remember our limitations and not promise what we can't deliver. But then there are givers who truly give out of a sense of joy and for a purpose. They give because they love the people they're helping. They don't really care if the networking they offer helps them in any way. They are giving to something larger, like science or denomination, and that in itself is its own reward. Now, I don't want to pat us on the back and say how amazing we are, but I do believe that as the Baja Four, we stepped out in faith and vulnerability. We never counted in a matchy way, tit for tat, what we were giving. We never said, well, you're a bigger church and you're smaller and you're giving more and you're giving less. We just gave out of gratitude for having each other, for having other resources and churches and musicians and religious educators to work with. We gave blessed by the members of our congregation who also gave of their art and their music and their crazy videos with flying objects. We were blessed by being generative together and never counting fully the cost, because we aimed for something larger. Not only our individual churches, not only the Baja Four, but a faith that tries to make sense of this world and heal it, working in community together. May we continue to do that. May we be generous and generative. May we have good boundaries and hope, and show vulnerability and gratitude for each other. May we, blessed be.
There was Reverend Tina Squire from Sky Island UU, and if you hear her preach, or when you hear her preach, you'll notice that her mouth movements and speech are beautifully synchronized. But nonetheless, she still had important things to say. So it's time now in our service for our ritual of joys and sorrows. Remember that all of us carry both joy and sadness within our hearts. And how we feel may not be obvious at all to those around us, but those emotions that we feel are very real and very present for each and every one of us. We all need a time and a space to honor those feelings. This over here, our shared bowl that we use for joys and sorrows, holds big rocks, and those symbolize our collective celebrations and our collective mournings. Those big rocks are from the earth, which is strong. It's more than strong enough to hold our pain, our sorrow, our love, our joy, and our anger. And in just a minute, the bowl will also hold the smaller stones you see on either side of it that you will place in to represent your individual joys and sorrows. On a personal note, boy, I feel joy. We were blessed with rain this morning, and we may be blessed again later today. It's always satisfying. And I want to just say a little bit about that. For me, as a conflict of emotions, total knee replacement surgery at the end of October, this past October. The original hospital bill for that surgery and a 2-night stay was a little over $121,000. Ultimately, we only had to pay $275. Now, I'm certainly grateful that we were able to, that's all it cost us financially for the services that the hospital provided. But I couldn't help but think about all those folks who don't have the kind of insurance that my wife and I are blessed with, the Medicare and the Medicare Advantage, who are going through at least as much pain as my wife was in, and perhaps even more, but aren't able to access treatment for that. It's just so unfair. We in the desert here know that water is a life-sustaining substance, but scarce. Let's remember there are those walking through our desert right now who do not have access to the water. So thinking about them, we pour water from this jug that represents the jugs of water left by our ministry partner, No More Deaths. You'll see it's decorated the way they decorate their jugs of water to try to communicate this is safe, this is a source of love from them. No More Deaths. Okay, so let us also take a moment to remember those desert people who came here first and whose land was stolen with successive acts of displacement and genocide. So we think about the Hohokam, the Yavapai, the Tohono O'odham, and the Yaqui, as well as honoring those indigenous people who no longer have tribal entities that they connect to. Now, those of you who wish to share joy or sorrow with us online, good. You get to use Menti again. And enter this code 2831-2483. If you're here in Goddard and you want to use Menti and want help with that, ever faithful Brian Moon is there to help. Also, if you're here in person and you have a joy or a sorrow that you wish to share, you're welcome to come up in just a minute down the center aisle and then to choose a stone or a marble to symbolize your joy and your sorrow, and then return to your seats along either side. For the rest of this, while they do this, please remain in quiet contemplation of your own feelings, your own thoughts, and to support those who come forward. Danielle.
Can we get the other mentee? I invite you into a spirit of meditation, prayer, and contemplation, whatever helps your own body center down and listen in. And we're going to skip the mentee responses this morning. I will read them next week, I promise. Our words for centering today come from Reverend Richard S. Gilbert, who is inspired by Dag Hammarskjöld, who said, "Each morning we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and give back." So Reverend Gilbert writes this: "Each morning we hold out the chalice of our being to be filled with the graces of life that abound, air to breathe, food to eat, companions to love, beauty to behold, art to cherish, causes to serve. They come in ritual procession, these gifts of life. Whether we deserve them, we cannot know or say, for they are poured out for us. Our task is to hold steady the chalice of our being. We carry the chalice with us as we go, either meandering aimlessly or with destination in our eye. We share its abundance, if we have any sense, reminding ourselves as we reminding others as we remind ourselves of the contents of the chalice we don't deserve. Water from living streams fills it, if only we hold it out faithfully. We give back, if we can, something of ourselves, some love, some beauty, some grace, some gift. We give back in gratitude, if we can, something like what is poured into our chalice of being for those who abide with us and will follow. Each morning, we hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, to give back.
This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three.
we covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Hi, friends. As the Baja 4 coordinator and ministerial intern, I was tasked with reviewing our years as the Baja 4. And to be honest, I'm not sure I'm up to this task. I'm not sure anyone's up to this task. So I'm sitting at the UUCT Welcome Center in front of our painting, which reads, "We are as varied as the blooms of the Sonoran Desert," looking for some inspiration. We say this saying every week in worship in our welcome words, and it feels fitting as a reflection on the Baja 4. Not only are we as unique as the blooms, we created the Baja 4 through radical generosity and welcome. This collective that we are creating together is unique, maybe in the world, in at least two ways. Each congregation has welcomed all the others in their doors. And I mean this literally. We have experienced our ministers rotating where they lead worship on Sundays. We have congregants just stop by on a Sunday morning because they want to hear the exciting topic a different worship team has prepared. And second, we have invited each other to much-loved social and justice activities. People from across the region and far beyond our region stop by things like our discussion groups, our coffee hours, and our programs. And ultimately, the time-consuming labor of love, it didn't actually have to work out. Maybe it's a miracle that it did. Thing that we're creating, we come together as a community, rooted only in our commitments to each other and to living our values out loud. It didn't have to work, and yet it does. We have created something that is more than the sum of its parts. In this way, the Baja 4 has some of the hallmarks of a concept in sociology that is called the third place. The first two social environments that a person regularly engages in are home and, for a lot of us, work. We tend to seek, however, an additional place, which sociologist Ray Oldenburg calls the third place. He wrote, "The third place is a generic designation for a variety of public places that host the regular, voluntary, informally, and happily anticipated gatherings of individuals beyond the realms of home and work." He continues, "Examples of third places include churches, cafes, bars, clubs, community centers, public libraries, gyms, bookstores, makerspaces, stoops, parks, theaters, opera houses, among many others." And as we witness these institutions in decline, we know how much more important it is that we have a third place that we call the Baja 4. Ray Oldenburg argues that third places are important for civil society, for democracy, civic engagement, and establishing feelings of a sense of place. 4 years ago, so many of us experienced a collapse in our third places. As we began working from home, we also began homing at what was now our workplace. We might have sought out safer out of our homes, locations such as parks and mountains to supplement our spaces. And for many of us, the third space became online. We knew each other only in these little Zoom boxes. I've known some of you only in this square. Oldenburg reminds us, though, that whether they are virtual or literal, all third spaces are important for our social and emotional well-being. And how do we measure the impact of our third space, the Baja 4? What metric can we accurately use? The hours of programming that we have created, maybe. The friendships that are emerging and the number of connections made. The gigabytes of film footage of our leaders doing all manner of silly and sometimes serious things. The number of miles we have driven between our congregations. The hours of Zoom calls that have kept us safe and connected across space. And the on-the-fly learning of how to use Zoom and the other pesky technologies. Maybe we just count the last 4 years in love. If you have ever come to an event with me, I'm asking you now, remind me to take pictures. These images that I want to show you are just a few of the many big and small things we have done together over the years, which I just regularly forget to take pictures of. We've have our T-Birds and our winter visitors events. We've had safety trainings. We've had trips to the splash pads and Humane Society fundraising and so much more that I've forgotten to take pictures of. So what is the future of our collective? We have some concrete ideas. For example, there's a team of us plotting how we can teach a cohort of a new program called Creating Theology Together next fall. It will invite more of us into a discussion of beliefs, philosophies, and ideas about what that which is most important to us means to us. Religious exploration will start a year of study of the world's religions. Youth and adults will have the chance to learn about these faiths and then visit a few houses of worship. We hope to expand our public witness. Building on the momentum of the Tucson Festival of Books, we plan to attend Pride in Bisbee and Tucson and see what other events come up that we can live our values in the world. And you can have as big or small of a part in these events as you're moved to. Join the Baja 4 newsletter and you'll see updates every week on what's happening across the region. But however much or little you engage with the Baja 4, all of us can experience belonging in all three spaces: home, work, church. But maybe we need to consider that we've added not only a third space, another third space, but maybe a fourth space, the Baja 4, a community holding your community in a loving embrace. For me, this is what the call to freely and compassionately share our faith and presence and resources means. We welcome each other. We give and receive as much as we comfortably, responsibly can of our time, talent, and treasures. We embrace our differences and our commonalities to create a culture of generosity than one of obligation. Generosity is an invitation to join in. Won't you join?
As always, it's nice to hear Pastor Jamili talk to us. I have just one more comment about the joys and sorrows. It never ceases to stir me seeing your faces as you approach and seeing as you contemplate which stone will best represent how you're feeling today. So thank you for allowing me to do that. It's time now in our service for the offering. Now today is Share the Plate. We do this once a month, every month, to honor a particular local organization that we give half of the non-pledge collection to support their mission. Generosity is a spiritual practice, and Share the Plate is one of the ways that we act on this mission of ours. So today, the organization that we're recognizing is the Southern Arizona Network for Down Syndrome, using the acronym SANS. SANS will receive half of the amount of all the checks made out today to UUCT, as long as you've got Share the Plate written on the memo line. If you are joining us virtually, you can send a check to the church office with Share the Plate in the memo. You can also give online to uuctucson.org/donate. But make sure you specify the donation is for Share the Plate. We've been in conversation with the director, executive director, Chelsea Hansen of SANS. She wishes she could be here in person today, but knowing that she couldn't, she sent me an email describing some of what SANS does. First, they extend their deepest gratitude that we are willing as a congregation to take the time to hear about their organization and their community. The Southern Arizona Network for Down Syndrome serves families across this region who have been impacted by Down syndrome. They walk alongside their families wherever they are on the journey, all the way from a prenatal diagnosis to caring for someone at the end stages of life. Their programs range from financial assistance for medical and educational purposes to informational services and resources. And it was just recently they celebrated World Down Syndrome Day on March 21st to honor their loved ones who have 3 copies of chromosome 21, where most of us only have 2. I had to look that up. So today, SANS has prepared a video to share with us, a brief 2-minute video, but very sweet. And Chelsea wants us to know how much she appreciates our support.
People with Down syndrome have special needs. Special needs? Really? It would be special if people with Down syndrome needed to eat dinosaur eggs. That would be special.
1 dinosaur egg. Enjoy.
You were totally right about Lindsay.
If we need to wear a giant suit of armor, that would be special.
I got a condo in Manhattan. Baby girl was hacking. So gonna get to clapping. Go pop a phone.
It would be special if we needed to be massaged by a cat. If we needed to be woken up by a celebrity.
Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey. Where are you? You may know me from Scrubs or Office Space. A few darker flicks, The Rock, Platoon, Wall Street. Funny story, I played Beth.
Out.
My bad.
That would be special. But what we really need is education, jobs, and opportunities. Friends, and some love. Just like everybody else. Are these needs special?
So true, just human needs. So however you participated in today's service, remember that our congregation depends upon you for your love, your time, and your financial support, as does SANS. For those of you here in person, the ushers will soon be passing around a collection baskets. If you're watching us from afar, you can send a check to our church office. You can give online, like I said earlier, UUC Tucson.org/donate, or you can text the number 833-361-5796. So please let us now give both freely and generously an offering that will help sustain and strengthen our shared religious community, our third place. This is a community of hope, of memory, of faith, and of love, because we are the keepers of the flame, and the flame burns for justice. It burns for the dream of a beloved and a radically welcoming community. It burns for the vision of a world made whole. Danielle.
religions are far from infallible. There are transient elements in the way we worship and boundaries which we cannot or will not yet see or confront as people of faith. These are borderlands, places where we are challenged by the different and strange. What do we find difficult to see? Who among us has the vision? What revelations hover in our hearts and minds? These are the edges of the future. This wisdom comes to us from my dear colleague and the first called minister of Mountain Vista UU, the Reverend Susan Manker-Seal. 30 years ago, she helped to gather ministers of our congregations for a once-a-month lunch, a gathering that continues to today. That group had no way of predicting that we would extend and deepen their ministry together and become a collaboration of 4 congregations. They just knew that they needed each other, deeply needed one another, needed to celebrate their congregation's changes and challenges together, needed to commiserate the transient and fallibility of congregational life together. These early colleagues were in the borderlands of ministry, on the edge of the future, and the relationship they formed would come to be our trajectory. Since those early gatherings, and through shared events and workshops and projects like hosting the Justice District Assembly, like the plethora of our pulpapaloozas, the global pandemic, we have come together and discovered that our congregations need one another as well. And that can be hard to perceive, that we are more than interconnected congregations, that we are interdependent. Does that sound odd? In a society that prizes the individual and holds independence at the core of success, dependence may sound different or strange. It might even sound like a weakness. Needing one another might draw attention away from our individual congregations. It might distract our different congregations from distinct church events and workshops and projects. It could even divert resources of the time and the talent and the treasure from our community to what? To cake and t-shirts? Well, thankfully, scarcity behind such thoughts is not a part of our faith tradition, but generosity is. Since their very first meeting, those ministers, years ago, they had held generosity at our core. As our history of celebration and commiseration and collaboration exemplifies, here in the Baja 4, generosity is generative. It answers and it amplifies. For years, the simple generosity of sharing their time at a meal each month answered the needs of our community ministers for collegiality. It amplified their individual ministries while they wandered in those in-between spaces. By their example, the generosity of our congregation's shared time and talent and treasure has brought us together, taking our faith out to meet thousands of people, as we just did with Tucson Book Festival and as we are starting to do with Pride Fest. We have shared in our whole lives training so that together we offer comprehensive, science-based, age-appropriate, accurate sex and sexuality curriculum to youth and to our elders throughout our broader community. Generosity has brought us to worship at the border, to sing, and to lament the ongoing injustice of immigration throughout the border community here in Arizona. It amplifies as we partner with those who would save the lives of migrants in the desert and accompany asylum seekers here in our urban areas. today, our generous collaboration answers harassment and intimidation directed to our congregations for expressing these very values and living our faith in the broader community with an interdependent strength. Together, we amplify safety, showing up for one another, and engaging in training that addresses digital and mental health first aid and physical threats. We are safer and we are stronger together. And what might our Baja for generosity bring us tomorrow as we move into an election year, as we anticipate undemocratic, hateful, even vicious rhetoric in our news feeds and at our very doorsteps? Well, having served our Baja 4 congregations for over 10 years now, I don't have that answer. And here in our Baja 4 collaboration, there's no reason why I should. Ours is a collaboration of many, many people in a shared ministry emerging from each individual congregation dependent upon one another. For direction, then, I turn in these borderlands of our times to Reverend Susan again and the lived example that she had alongside so many ministers, religious educators, music directors, administrators, custodians, boards, lay leaders, members, friends, guests, children, to ask the questions that only we can answer together. What do we find difficult to see among us and out in our society? And how will we confront it? Who among us has new and renewed vision for tomorrow, and how will we enact it together? And what revelations hover in our minds and our hearts, and how will we bring these to life together as the Baja 4? There are things that will come and go. There's styles and fashions of worship that will change. And the challenges that we face as Unitarian Universalists will always shift and move. But our answer and our amplification has always been and will always be the generosity of our spirit. As I have been taught to say, Amen, Ashe, Aho. May it be so, because we choose it to be.
A reminder, it's always a dangerous proposition to give 4 ministers a microphone and a service. But stick with us. We have one more. But some of you are sticking around just because it says cake on that slide. I know. AV team, this is a video to welcome a new minister to our ranks and introduce you to her. Welcome, Pastor Inga, to Borderlands UU and the Baja 4. I am thrilled beyond belief that you have found a shared ministry together. As you begin this ministry together, I just have one piece of advice for you. Lean in. Borderland, you have been leaning in as this Baja 4 collaboration has grown and strengthened over the years. You have been part of what makes the Baja 4 strong, and you have also been held by the Baja 4 at times when you've needed to be held. And Inga, as a member of UUCT for a little while now, you have been part of what makes our congregation, what makes the net of the Baja 4 strong. And you have also been held by the Baja 4 and by UUCT as you've been exploring your Unitarian Universalist identity. As you continue in your shared ministry together, keep leaning in. Lean into the relationships we have with each other as colleagues, as congregations. Lean into our shared offering and our shared resources. Lean in when things are easy and when things are hard, when you really want to and when you'd really rather not. Just lean in. We are here to hold you. You all together make us stronger.
Welcome, Reverend Inga, to Borderlands, to the Baja Four, and to ministry in Unitarian Universalism. I have so enjoyed being part of a denomination that people kind of get. No more will you have to say to people, it's United Church of Christ. We do have instruments in worship. It's kind of like Presbyterian. No, welcome to ministry in a denomination that people kind of get. A few weeks ago, I was at the Festival of Books in Tucson at the Baja Four table, and a young woman walked up, and she said that she was a pagan, but it was getting lonely doing ritual alone, and that we might have something for her. I handed her information about UUCT and their CUPS group. A couple days ago, a man came up to me after a meeting and said, I'm going to tell you something I don't share often in Cochise County. I'm an atheist. And I said, you'd be welcome at our church. And he said, I know, that's why I'm going to stop by. So welcome, Inga. I hope you feel as loved and welcomed as I have been by these wonderful ministers, these amazing congregations, and a denomination where you can say what you mean and mean what you say. Welcome.
Hi, Pastor Inga. I'm here at UUCT in our children's library and thinking about how each of our congregations is like a bookshelf. There are so many stories to be told. Each one of them is different and unique and special, and each one of them makes our bookshelves whole. And without them, without each of these books, we don't have a library. The Baja Four is like that. We have so many stories, so much potential to develop. We will never read all of it, but we welcome you to try it out.
To paraphrase from The Princess Bride, love them as I have loved them, Reverend Inga, and there will be joy.
Inga, have some cake. Welcome.
Not that one. Don't mess with that, buddy.
Welcome, Inga.
Now, I know a lot of us are going to say the same things about the Baja Four, how wonderful it is, how we really are stronger together. I think we're a little bit sweeter together. I know we're all eating cake, but I say, why have eggs and flour and sugar? Skip all of that and go straight for the chocolate. Welcome, Pastor Ian.
Hello, Baja Four. I just want to thank you for such a beautiful welcome. I so appreciate your words of wisdom, and I don't have a cake yet, but I know I'm gonna get one. So in the meantime, cheers with the Oreo.
So, good news, the last song is short. And also, it's one that will keep you moving and wiggling as you get through your week. It is a call and response song, and please rise and sing. Please, somebody take my son so that he stops messing with the microphone. Thank you. Hold on a second. Okay, so it's a call and response song. I'm going to sing the call once as a trio, and then we're going to sing it again, and I'm going to start peeling off and doing the response. If you want to do the response, join me on the response, or continue on the call. The call goes like this. So 1, 2, Bob, 1, 2, ready, and keep your heart wide open. Though the waves wanna push you around, you gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. You gotta keep your heart. You gotta keep wide open. You gotta keep your heart wide open. The waves wanna push you around. The waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open. Wide open. Till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Brings you back to solid ground. You gotta keep your heart. You gotta keep wide open. The waves wanna push you around. The waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open. Till your faith brings you back solid ground. Till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Thank you.
It's much harder to sit down. You have a very easy time sitting down.
As we draw our service to an end, it is an uplifting song. We need to extinguish the chalice. So we're going to be reading together When We Take Fire by the Reverend Amy Zucker Morgenstern. If you read along with me. When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less, it becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and warmth with us, multiplying their power by all of our lives and sharing it with the world. Daniel.
if it's the right one, I love Cat Stevens. It's good for my voice. Okay.